Welcome to the Pongcast, brought to you by the Pong-A-Thon. We are a movement that exists solely to see the issue of modern-day slavery end. Right now around the world, there are estimated to be more than 40 million slaves, and we believe this is not okay. We fight modern-day slavery by creating awareness of the issue, but primarily through the fundraising of monies that goes to support 7 incredible organisations that tackle the issue of modern-day slavery in different ways. We raise funds through the marathon table tennis events, or what we like to call Pong-A-Thons, where communities all across Australia and the US will engage and play table tennis together, some for 2 hours, some for 24 hours, to raise money to fight modern day slavery. Since 2011, we've raised nearly $2.7 million, and we're very proud of the contribution that we have made in this global fight. In our episodes together, we will explore what's happening in the movement, as well as have incredible interviews and conversations with our partner organisations where they discuss the impact that is happening on the ground. We hope you enjoy it. All right, well, welcome to the 3rd episode of the Pongcast. It's great to have you here with us. I am joined by the illustrious Alex, who is one of our awesome Pong interns for 2021. How are you doing, Alex?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
That's good. So I tapped Alex on the shoulder to help out with co-hosting the Pongcast for episode 3. Alex is a bit of a VIP, really, of the Pong movement in 2019, which was what, your year 11 year?
Yeah, year 11.
He and a whole bunch of awesome student leaders raised over $20,000 at his school. So he has a wealth of knowledge and a huge amount of passion for the Pong. And he does a number of things for us, which we will go into later in the episode. But Alex, to start, just to give everyone a bit of an update on where things are at for the Pong, maybe give us some stats. Where are we at in terms of total funds raised? And how many communities have registered for the Pong so far in 2021?
Yeah, so as of right now, we have $26,649 raised.
Amazing.
Which is absolutely amazing because we've only had 2 or 3 events actually play so far this year. So that's an amazing total.
Yeah.
We also have 32 communities signed up, and 19 of those have signed up since our last episode of Pongcast.
Yes, you're right, because I think we only had, in the teens. We're in the teens for the last episode. So that's awesome. Out of those, maybe let us know, Alex, out of those 19 new communities that have registered since, I mean, some of them are existing communities, some of them are new ones. Which are you most excited about? I mean, some you know better than others, but maybe headline some of the ones that you're really excited about for us.
Yeah, so, well, I'm excited about all 19 of them.
Of course.
There are 4 new communities that have joined up with Pong this year that I'm really excited about. Mm-hmm. One of those is Heathdale Christian College's Melton campus.
Got it.
Which are a new venue this year, and they're running a Pong and pizza afternoon on a Friday.
Always good.
Yeah, I think we might have to visit that one, David. Yeah. Especially when the pizza's around.
Absolutely.
Another new community that I'm really excited is another school, and that's the Grange out in Wyndham.
Okay.
And they've got awesome student leaders from Werribee Baptist Church who are heading up their Pong, which is awesome. Really exciting. Yeah. Another new community is the Boys Brigade Victoria, which I believe
you're heading up, right? That's one of the many things you're doing.
Yeah, that is one of the hats that I'm wearing this year.
Tell us about it.
So we've got guys coming together from all around Melbourne for an awesome 24-hour table tennis marathon in September, which is going to be really exciting.
So good.
And we're aiming to raise $10,000 from that venue, which is going to be very exciting.
$10,000, wow. That's a lot for a new community, man. I love it.
Yeah. And another new venue that I'm really excited about is Steeple Church in Melbourne. They are new to the Pong this year. And shout out to Joseph and Daniel and their event organizing crew. Yeah. And we're sure they're going to do an amazing job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to see new venues registered. And in fact, I think Steeple Church are registered for the Pong United weekend, which, as you know, Alex, is kind of the main event for the calendar for the Pong. So maybe give us an update on, how things are progressing for Pong United.
Yeah, so we were really excited about Pong United coming up on the 10th to 11th of September, which is only 5 weeks out.
Yeah,
so we are deep into planning some really awesome content for that 24-hour live stream.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have interviews with the partners over in Southeast Asia, which
Mm-hmm.
are always highlights of anything that we do. We're also going to be interviewing communities that are playing across those couple of days.
Yep.
And there's going to be games and prizes. And also, excitingly, throughout the 24 hours, there's going to be some angel donors who are going to be donating cash to some communities.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it, Alex. Thanks for that update. I think last year, if you were a part of our Pong United live stream, whether you're an event that ran or whether you were just watching, it was a lot of fun. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun. This year, Alex, we're hoping that it's not in lockdown because we ran it during lockdown in Melbourne. So we're hoping to have a proper set and studio and stuff. So yeah, all of that stuff sounds awesome. We do have, as Alex said, some anonymous angel donors that are going to give money to communities that are running during the stream, whether they win prizes, whether they do something extraordinary, different, and they'll be rewarded for being creative, I guess, in their ponging. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to profile, as Alex said, the impact that's being achieved on the ground with our partners, live interviews with them. So we really encourage you to, if you are a part of a community that's registered for Pong United, to register as a participant. Get registered, get excited, start funding donations and fundraising as we gear up for Pong United. Maybe you're a community that ran previously, that's for whatever reason, maybe it's just because of the craziness of COVID, didn't run last year. We'd love to see you be a part of it this year. So really consider whether it's for the Pong United weekend. Alex, maybe a good question for you is, if you can't run on the Pong United weekend, can you still be part of the Pong?
Absolutely. You can still be part of the Pong. And actually, you can still tune into that live stream. We'll be going live on various social media platforms. So you can still tune in that weekend. But absolutely, we've got some really awesome events happening outside that weekend as well that we're really excited about too.
Yeah, no, very well said, Alex. So the most important thing is that you Pong whenever it suits you. So some of the communities that Alex referred to earlier aren't running on Pong United weekend. I think the Grange is running in October. Is that right?
Yeah, Grange in October. Actually, I think it's only Steeple Church out of those
ones that are running. There you go.
Running that weekend.
So if you can run on Pong United, we'd love for you to be a part of that because it's going to be a crazy amount of fun. But if you can't, that's totally fine too. So we will continue to update you on the planning for Pong United. So stay tuned and just put it in your diaries. It's obviously going to go for 24 hours. So just have it playing in the background, kind of like the Olympics. I know, Alex, in my household, we've just kind of been having the Olympics playing in the background the last couple of days, and so I think similar kind of approach to it. Just have it sitting there, and it'll be a lot of fun to be a part of it. So yeah, definitely. We're really excited about Pong United. All right, so moving into some of the impact, Alex, that we've seen achieved recently on the field. I said this in our last episode, but I'll say it again. The purpose of our podcast is really to highlight the work that's being enabled by your advocacy and fundraising. So it's something intentional that we want to do to really make you guys aware as a movement of some of the work that's being achieved on the ground. So really quickly, Alex, I'll highlight two stories that have kind of come through our partners over the last month since our last podcast. There are other stories which we will update via email and Facebook, but these are just two that we want to highlight today on the episode. So the first one is actually quite a big one. In Chennai in South India, we had 40 people freed that were in slavery for 2 years. So awesome. This was a case of bonded labor, which for those that may not be aware of what bonded labor is, it's basically slavery where they will have an advance or an amount of money that they are given in exchange for future work. And so what these traffickers do is they will go to a village and they will say, hey, here is X amount of dollars or X amount of rupees. And normally it's a lot more than what an average person would be able to earn in a month. So it's quite attractive. And people see that as a way to enable food and supplies and basically welfare for their families. And so naturally they want to take the offer up. And what happens is they will go and travel to another area to find that work. And the terms of the debt are so extraneously punitive that they can never pay it back. And so in this instance, there were 40 people, 11 of which were children, which were held in bondage for 2 years in this way. And they were never able to, doesn't matter how much work they did, they were never able to repay it. It was actually part of a development of a highway. They were helping build a highway. So it was a contract that was given out to a private company from the government. And this company just exploited all of these people. And so thankfully, through the investigations of one of our partners and one of their partners that worked locally in the field, they were able to conduct interviews with these people groups. It was I think it was about 5 or 6 families all up, and just last month they were able to get them freed, which was amazing. And I think there are ongoing investigations into the company that hired them. I think there was a trafficker that was outside or independent of the company that was also involved. And so prosecution against both of those parties, it will be ongoing in the next couple of months. So that's huge, Alex. 40 people.
Absolutely.
That's in terms of the cases that we get and the reports that we get from our partners, that is definitely one of the bigger numbers. So that is an incredible result. The other one that I just want to quickly mention was also found in India for one of the programs that we support there from one of our partners. This was relating to a sheep farmer, an 11-year-old kid that was basically enslaved in a super remote area in India. So he wasn't necessarily held captive physically, but he was by the way of geography. And what I mean by that is there was no way that he would be able to escape because he had no means to escape his captors. He was basically a sheep farmer that was looking after all of these sheep, and there was no way that he was able to escape because he had no means to escape. He was dependent on his traffickers for food, etc. And anyway, the partner identified this boy, and they were very, suspicious of what was going on here. Little did they know, when they actually had some further investigation, they realized that his whole family was also in slavery in a different, by a different person. So his whole family was in slavery to a brick kiln owner. And what they did is they got an advance to try and get themselves out of slavery by selling their son to this other sheep farmer. So they got this advance from the sheep farmer. They gave that money to the brick kiln owner, and he still refused to release them. So, it's got kind of multiple layers to it, this one, but it's just incredibly sad. Even when they often will have the money to repay them, these people don't release them from their bonds. Working with our partners, they were able to talk with the boy and then find the family, talk to the family, and then worked with police to free both the family and the boy, obviously. So they're going through a process of rehabilitation. The boy was obviously not in the best state physically in terms of his health and mental health. So they will go through a process of rehabilitation and aftercare. So Alex, they're just 2 really quick stories. But this happens every week, as in these reports that come through. And this is really what the Pong is about. It's about enabling impact like this. So be encouraged. There is a lot of evil in the world, and it's such a privilege that we can be a part of being combating this in a tangible way. The other thing that came out of this really quickly, Alex, is that they found, one of our partners found through this study that there has been a huge increase in child slave labor during COVID. And in fact, this is maybe a good segue to our interview. Libby, we talk about the issue of slavery increasing in some areas because of COVID. People are more desperate because of COVID because they have less access to jobs and their livelihoods, whether they were, let's say in the tourism industry, the tourism doesn't exist really at the moment. And so people become more vulnerable, and when they become more vulnerable, they're more at risk of being exploited. So children are now found to be at risk of being exploited by up to 90%, they found, from compared with pre-COVID levels, 94% actually. So it's a sobering statistic for sure. But I think it's something that we can take, I guess, solace in, that this one child's life, we help turn around. And so there's nothing, there's great pride we can take in that fact. So we will head to our interview, and I probably should have headlined that at the start, Alex. We've got an incredible interview with Libby Bundrick, who is one of the people that work and is part of the team, a core part of the team at Beginnings Foundation. So Beginnings Foundation is one of our 7 incredible partners. They work in Bangkok in Thailand. And so we had this interview, it was about 5 days ago now, I believe, Alex. And Libby just shares her heart about the work on the ground, how they've had to, adapt to COVID. And she also gives some insight into the process of aftercare that they undertake, because that is kind of the main work that they do. So, we hope you enjoy this this interview with Libby from Beginnings Foundation. All right, well, welcome, Pong family. It is my absolute pleasure for us to have a chat with Libby Bundrick today from Beginnings Foundation. We have been supporting Beginnings since 2013, I believe, so about 8 years. And I guess it's important to just have in the back of your mind, for however long you've been ponging, however long you've been part of the Pong movement, all that Libby will be talking to today is really your impact. We are enabling the awesome work that Beginnings do. So Libby, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you. Maybe as a start, just introduce yourself. This is the first time we've been able to interview you, so just give us a bit of context as to when you started at Beginnings, and maybe where you're from as well.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So happy to be here this morning. Well, it's morning here in Thailand.
Yeah, afternoon here. Yep.
My name is Libby Bundrick. Originally from the U.S., but I actually grew up here in Thailand as a missionary kid. So I've been in Thailand since I was 4 years old. But then I moved back to the U.S. to go to university. So moved back around, I think it was 2005. I met my husband there. We started a family. And then in 2012, so right around the time that all of this was beginning, I visited Beginnings for the first time. And so over the years, I was involved doing mainly volunteering. I went on a couple of trips to Thailand, and really just fell in love with the ministry, as much as my heart was broken for the problem here in Thailand, which I had been aware of growing up. But I grew up in like northern rural Thailand. So I grew up where a lot of the girls that we'll talk about are coming from into the cities. And so this was my first time really getting exposure to what it looked like on the other side. But as much as my heart was broken to see all of that, I was just filled with so much hope when I encountered Beginnings and what they were doing. And so it was kind of an open invitation to God to say, or rather an open invitation from God to say, how you want to get involved with this, because this needs to be something that's important to you going forward. So fast forward a while, around 2017, my husband, Brian, was able to visit Beginnings and work on a labor trip building the garden. And after that trip, we both just really felt like we needed to at least take steps towards trying to move to Thailand. And God just opened every door that needed to be opened over the next couple of years. So we've been here since the end of 2019. So we got here, just months before the pandemic began, which is just all in his perfect timing that we were able to even come in before the country closed its borders. So we've been here. Obviously, I'm American, but Because I grew up here, I can speak the language already, and I know a bit of the culture, but every single day I'm learning.
I'm sure.
Whether it's new nuances about the language, or I learn a lot about what is it that culturally, what are those cultural pressures that are bringing women into the sex industry. So that's a little bit about me. We have 2 kids, 2 young kids, and a third on the way.
Third on the way, yeah. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing to hear, I guess, the backstory, particularly growing up in Thailand. You would have a very special, obviously you're not Thai, but you would have a deeper cultural appreciation than I guess the average foreigner would, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I'm part Filipino,
Okay.
so I blend in very easily, which is such a blessing. I don't take that for granted. Most people just assume that I'm Thai, and so I have conversations with women and girls that I think I wouldn't be able to have if I was going into it, not knowing a lot of their culture and their language. So it's been a huge gift.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Libby, maybe for those that maybe aren't as familiar, could you give us a bit of understanding around what Beginnings Foundation do and where you do it? Where are you currently based at the moment? Where are you living? And yeah, just a brief overview of the work that Beginnings Foundation does.
Yeah, so Beginnings Foundation is a foundation. We're a Thai registered foundation here in Thailand. And our mission really is to make new beginnings for women and girls. And so we have two sites, 2 main places that we work at. And that's one in Bangkok and one in Pattaya, which is where I physically live.
Okay.
Yeah, so the reason why these 2 places are important to us are because they're 2 of the main areas where sexual exploitation is a real problem. Trafficking out of the red light districts. There are 2 very prominent red light district areas that we work primarily with in Bangkok. That's Nana Plaza and Soy Cowboy. And then in Pattaya, there's square miles worth of just bar after bar after bar. And so, Pattaya is, at the moment, it looks very different because of COVID. But Pattaya is considered one of the sex capitals of the world. And so we started out in Bangkok, but our founder, Benita, and especially our director, Anne, really had a dream to expand to Pattaya one day. Pattaya is only about 2 hours south of Bangkok. And so a few years ago, God made it happen. That's a whole other, that would take a while to explain all of the miracles that made that happen. But we've been in Pattaya now for a few years, and there are 2 safe homes. And we have mainly the Pattaya house is for younger girls. And so it's mostly girls under the age of 15.
Wow.
But then we also take in adult women who are older and likely not going to pursue like their high school education. They might be more likely to do vocational things. Whereas in Bangkok, we have more of our older, younger girls. So the girls who are pursuing their upper high school education and then university. So that's kind of how it's logistically divided up.
Yeah, no, very, very incredible, the work that you guys do. And I actually have had the pleasure and privilege with my wife in 2019, so it would have been a little bit before you.
Yeah, right before, I think.
Yeah, so that was amazing, spending some time with Benita and Anne in Bangkok, so incredible. Could you take us through a typical, and look, I'm sure no process is typical, right? But give us an example of what the journey of transformation might look like for a girl that's come in, maybe from day one, what it would look like, or even before, like the process to her coming into Beginnings.
Yeah, sure. So we work in 3 different ways: prevention, intervention, but primarily aftercare. So where we do prevention is we support villages, so hill tribe villages and poverty-stricken slum areas in Bangkok, to support them to stay as a family and to go to school and get education when they're really young, so that they never end up transitioning into the sex industry later on. That's kind of the first part that's important to us. But then the intervention part is where girls are coming out of a situation to come live at beginnings. And so this can happen in a lot of different ways. We've had girls who are referred to us, which is always, you know, it's overwhelming. We're so thankful, but we've had multiple instances where girls who have been with us before go on to graduate or, you know, get a job. And then they're able to identify girls either in their own family or back in their own community that are at risk.
Wow.
And they'll refer them to us.
Wow.
Another way that it can happen, especially with younger girls, is they're pulled out of their environment by the government, or by social workers, or by, you know, some type of rescue has happened, where it's typically childhood sexual abuse, trafficking, that kind of thing. And then they'll be referred to us as an aftercare program. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Oh, we've also gone into, so there's a hill tribe village that we'll go into every year. This is the first year we haven't done it. But we'll go in and we'll share education around trafficking and things like that. And we'll identify girls who typically, because their mom or their sister or something like that are already in the sex trade, will be identified as this girl's about to go, but she's next, whether she's sold by her family or it's just expected that that's what she's going to do. And we'll invite her, you know, come live with us, come get your education. You can support your family. In the meantime, we'll find a way for you to do that. So those are the myriad. It's so nuanced. There's no exact black and white of what it looks like. But either way, a girl's coming out of whatever situation she's in, and that's going to be pretty traumatic for her. Oh, I forgot to touch on, I'm so sorry. Obviously, girls who are currently in the sex trade, so in the bars or massage parlors, brothels, we'll go in and do outreach and invite them out.
Amazing.
So there's many different ways, but whatever it looks like, something we keep in mind, and the reason why aftercare is really our passion, is that it's traumatic just being pulled out of a situation. And so it takes a long time for a girl to kind of realize her own self-worth, to start, you know, loving herself again sometimes, or even learning what real love looks like, and then helping her, you know, supporting her to realize that she can stay and she can pursue her hopes and dreams, whatever those are. So it'll look a little bit different for whoever, you know. Some girls are interested in going on and finishing high school and then going on to college. Others are, you know, I'm not quite as interested in that, but I'd really like to learn a trade, that kind of thing. So I don't know, that was a very long.
No, that's a great answer. And you touched on a little bit my next question. How has, I guess, COVID the last, 18 months shifted? You said that you would normally go into the hill tribes and you haven't done that this year. And I'm assuming that's because of COVID. So it'd be good just to get a bit of understanding as to what changed, if at all, the process of whether it's the girls coming in the first place at beginnings or the process of aftercare itself.
Yeah. So like I said, aftercare is really where the heart of what we do is. So we've had girls who have come to us at a very young age and are still with us.
Wow.
So, you know, we don't want to rush anybody into healing, and we want to just support them to do what their dream is. And so Yeah, so it has changed a bit, even though our mission has remained the same. The really relevant need at the moment is crisis relief. And the reason for that is because women and girls who are either at risk of, ending up in the sex industry or are already in it, are already very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so what happens when a crisis hits is those who are vulnerable end up being even more vulnerable as a result, which is not fair, but that's how it works. And so what we've seen lately, just as kind of an overview of what COVID has looked like in Thailand, pretty much the first things to close down are any profession that has to do with interacting with people in close proximity. And so that has meant the bars, massage parlors, anything like that, soap bars, that kind of thing, were closed down immediately. So they have been closed. Like for here in Pattaya, for example, where I live, it's considered a city that never sleeps. And it has become like a ghost town. It is incredible to see. And it's still so surreal walking through some of these areas, like the world famous walking street here in Pattaya is almost completely shut down. And not only that, but a lot of them have just gone out of business completely. And so what that has meant is that, and here's where some of the nuance comes in, is that the women who are in these situations often are there because they have no other options. They have no other careers. Sometimes they don't read and write. They can't get any other job. And of course, there's always going to be that pattern potentially of childhood sexual abuse, domestic abuse, the kinds of things that keep them from potentially being able to maintain a steady job. So anyway, they're in these situations, and then the bars close down, which means that the only way that they have been able to find to support their families is now also gone. And so obviously we would never wish for their sake that they can continue to be exploited. We want to give them better opportunities and different careers than the sex industry. But because the crisis has impacted the economy so badly, there is no other alternative really. We're not allowed to do any of our classes. So we can't do any of our baking or cooking or sewing classes like normal because of COVID restrictions. So we've really been working over the last year or so to reduce vulnerability as much as possible by giving out crisis relief. So we'll give out dry foods, rice, canned fish, because that's a favorite here. Things like that. But then I do want to mention that even as we've been doing that, intervention cases have not stopped. So we've actually had 9 new women and girls join us just since COVID began. Which is just, it just goes to show that even though there's a crisis going on, the business of exploitation has not ended. So we're still here to receive girls, but we're not able to do as much outreach and things like that as we would like.
I remember, Libby, when we were discussing just personally last week, I think you mentioned that as far as you can tell, since COVID, trafficking across land borders has actually increased when you compare it to before COVID. So it has, I think it exemplifies how COVID has exacerbated vulnerability, and it's made people even more vulnerable to exploitation and trafficking. So yeah, it's quite sobering really. And I guess the need is as great now as ever, I think is probably also pertinent to say. Just following on from, talking about the process of aftercare, as you know, our theme for this year for the Pong is One Life, and it's really about distilling the issue and the immensity and the scale of the issue just down to one life, so we can really appreciate the impact that we can have, even if it's just to save one life or to see one life transformed. Would it be okay if you shared a story of one girl, obviously you don't have to mention names, that has come through beginnings and has really come from a place of darkness into a place of hope and life?
Yeah, sure. So I'll share a story about, you can call her Kit. I'll call her Kit.
Kit, yeah.
Yeah, she came to us right around the time I met her for the first time in 2012. She had just moved in, so it was around 10 years ago now.
Sure.
And at the time, she didn't even know how old she was. So what had happened was she was actually sold out of her village. And so her family was very desperate. They very poverty-stricken area, low education. And on top of that, was Hill Tribe. And so the issue with hill tribes or migrants who come from any of the countries that border Thailand is that once they're in Thailand, whether they escape as refugees or they migrated, a long time ago as an ethnic hill tribe from China, even though hill tribe children are born in Thailand, they don't automatically receive citizenship.
Right.
And so it turned out that she was stateless. So she is not a citizen of any other country, but she's also not a citizen of Thailand. Wow. And so that means that a lot of government programs do not apply to her. Education looks different, all of that kind of thing, medical care. She has very lack of resources, really. So her family was very desperate, and obviously, it's never okay, but desperation leads people to do desperate things. And so her family sold her into trafficking when she was very young. She was actually rescued out of her situation and was referred to us. So we got to know her, and she didn't know how old she was, but we were able to get it kind of estimated. And so when we first met her, she was very quiet, very reserved. What she'd been through, she was so used to being treated a certain way, being used. And so it's been so cool to see her transformation, not just in the way that she's been able to pursue her education, but her as a person. She is the most strong-willed, the most feisty. She will respectfully, but she will talk back if she needs to. And it's just, it's so awesome to see how far she's come. And I do want to mention the reason why I want to share her story is because she's been with us now for a really long time. And so that speaks into why aftercare is so important. Sometimes it takes this long, but she's been with us now for about 10 years, and she's about to graduate from university with a degree in engineering. So she's an amazing student, which you don't need to be a success. But she's very naturally academically gifted. And so we know that she would not have been able to do all of that if it weren't for the generosity of people who make, the sponsorship program possible.
I think the way that you described her story at the start, that she didn't know how old she was, she didn't know her birthday. I mean, that, if anything, describes a story of desperation. The fact that you don't even know that is it's hard to really kind of wrap your mind around. Does she know her family and her community that she's come from, or there's just no real connection there anymore?
There's no real familial connection anymore. She knows where she's from, though, and we've done a lot of, because she's stateless, we've done a lot of government red tape kind of stuff to make sure that she can still go to school and get her education. And we've been working to get her citizenship for
that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
So where is that process at?
I need to get a better update. I know things were kind of moving along, but COVID has really, that's complicated some things. But yeah, we would love to see that for her.
Yeah, well, as you know, Libby, I've spent some time in Thailand, and I know that that is a real problem for peoples up, especially in the north and hill tribe areas, or those that have come through from either Laos or Burma, Myanmar, getting any kind of support, whether it's citizenship or otherwise, in Thailand is really, really, really difficult. I think it's so beautiful that you're able to really stand alongside women like Kit, girls like Kit, and really be able to advocate for them, because they need that, right? They need someone to advocate for them. Wow, that's a powerful story, and I'm sure that there are many stories. We could spend the next half an hour going through other stories of girls that have come through beginnings. The work that you and Anne and Benita do is really extraordinary, and it's such an honor for us as the Pong to be able to support you. Maybe to finish, Libby, as you know, the Pong is made up of a lot of people that are of faith, and so I think a big part of who the Pong is about being able to support in every single way, and obviously for those that identify as of being faith, prayer is obviously really important. So it would be great to understand how best we can pray for beginnings, particularly during this time of COVID, and the work that you guys are doing. So maybe just a few prayer points that come to mind that we can have for us to be able to really support you in that way.
Yeah, sure. So really the biggest thing I think that is weighing on everyone at the moment is the COVID situation here.
And my understanding is Thailand at the moment is going through a really bad wave. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's actually the first bad wave that we've had. Thailand closed its borders and took measures very early on. And so we really didn't see very many cases at all last year. And we had pretty much normalcy for a long time. And so going into, I think it was April this year, we went into our quote unquote third wave, but it's really our first real wave that we've had. And this one has been bad. So it's been steadily climbing. And the problem here in Thailand is there's only so much hospital resources. And so it's been scary for a lot of people to watch it unfold, and yet you have no control. Hospitals get overwhelmed. It's especially bad in Bangkok right now, but of course that could always, spiral out of control in other areas of the country too. So it's been really hard for people to see, the numbers going up every day, and vaccination rates are really low here. And lockdowns and shutdowns and things like that. So I think what I would say is please pray for Thai people, because there are millions of people who are out of work just due to closures, and everyone is under stress, which I'm sure you and anybody listening would understand, because it's kind of this collective thing that we've all been going through. But yeah, pray for, we have women who are contacting us weekly because they have nothing to eat. Wow. So be praying for that. And then also be praying for the staff and the residents, because we are isolating at home. And so the two houses have not been able to be united in several months now. We've been distancing away from each other. And part of that is because we have two residents, one in each home, who are currently undergoing cancer treatments. Wow. And so we have two people who have compromised immune systems. So we have to be really careful. Even though I live in the same neighborhood as the Pattaya Safe House, my family has been distancing away as well. And so everybody's feeling very lonely. The girls are not in school in person. They're all in school online. And so the staff who live with the girls day in and day out are managing, a lot of girls going to school, all in different classrooms on different devices. And it's been a lot. Yeah. So we're starting to see a lot of mental health. Of course, we're talking about what are your coping strategies? What are you doing to get out of the house, even if it's just a drive around the neighborhood? Things like that. And then I would also say, like you said earlier, this time um, means that exploitation is popping up in different ways and people are getting creative. And it hasn't necessarily slowed down, even though it's become a little bit harder to track. So we're starting to see a lot more things like online exploitation. So girls who would normally be in the bar are now being live streamed and things like that. Of course, we worry about traffickers, prowling around the cities looking for people who are desperate. And yeah, so those are kind of the three main things. But I do also want to put a praise in there. And that is that Beginnings has been, we have felt so supported. And so, even though the entire world has gone through crisis, we feel consistently thought about and prayed after. And people have been giving to crisis relief, even though that's not one of our normal programs. That goes outside the scope of our budget. But people have made it happen despite the crisis. So we're so thankful. I kind of want to end with the thankfulness part.
That's amazing to hear that you feel that way. I think now more than ever that's super important. And those super practical but super important. Hey, I think I can't even imagine your support staff and the load that they're experiencing right now, being 24/7, with all of these girls in the house, praying grace over them to be able.
I'm always just like, take a nap, please. Take a nap. Leave the girl. They can take care of themselves for an hour. You got this.
No, I can imagine. Well, Libby, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And obviously, you guys have 1,001 things you're doing. So we really appreciate you taking the time and, sharing some stories with us. Obviously, we're heading into campaign now, and there's going to be communities all across Australia and the US, a couple there too. Ponging, as we call it, and really they're ponging because they are passionate about the work that you do and they want to support you. There's a lot of disruption, a lot of, this campaign's probably going to look a little bit different from previous years because of COVID, but that doesn't change the need, right? And doesn't change the heart either of those that are part of the Ping Pong-A-Thon. So on behalf of the whole movement, we just want to say thank you for coming on board. And we look forward to hopefully have some more future conversations with you, whether in person. It'll be great for us as a team to come over, or Zoom also works too.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone who's continued to support us. There's no way for us to truly articulate how much that means to us and how we wouldn't be able to keep going if it weren't for the generosity of people, sometimes that we've never even met, and that just, it's overwhelming, but we're so thankful to be supporting the girls as they, are the heroes of their own story. So thankful for you guys.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Libby, for coming on. Appreciate it. Wow. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed that interview. It was certainly a pleasure to be able to interview Libby. Alex, I'd love to kind of, after watching that, I'd love to know kind of what you're thinking, what you're reflecting on with the interview with Libby.
Yeah, well, I mean, hearing from any of our partners is always a real highlight and really amazing. I think that one thing that interview highlighted for me was just how dedicated the partners are. How much work they put in, even though they can't actually get together physically in many places at the moment. They're still working hard. They've had 9 new people come into their program over COVID, and they can't even get together. And they're still working so hard, and they're so dedicated. I think that's why, this year it's just as important as any other year that we really get behind the Pong this year and really go all out in our event organizing and our fundraising in whatever way that we engage this year, because we're not fundraising for ourselves. We're fundraising for people like Libby so that they can help more people like Kit, and I think that that's really important.
Yeah, very well said, Alex. I think again, hearing the stories, hearing directly from our partners as to the work that's being that's occurring right now. And I guess what you said is true. I think now more than ever our partners need us. And I think it also, Alex, puts into context our own battles with COVID. And I don't want to minimize anyone's, distress and anxiety over this last 18 months in Australia. It has not been pretty. But when you hear about the stories of people that the beginning support where, they're providing crisis relief and food because people don't have food. Like, that's the reality of the situation now. So I think it does put into context for us as well. Like, hey, we're doing okay, and we have the capacity to really help those that really need it during this time. So, I love those thoughts, Alex. As we wrap up, I'd love to just give you the opportunity. Any other encouragements you want to say to the Pong community as we head into campaign? Yeah,
really get behind the Pong this year. I think has to be the all-time encouragement. Keep watching the videos that are coming up on Facebook, and check out the sections on our website about all of the different partners we support. A lot of those have got videos along with them that tell amazing stories that can really inspire you to go all out this year.
I love it. Thanks, Alex. It's been great having you a part of the show for this episode. So we appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to seeing everyone in our episode 4 that we'll hope to launch in about 4 weeks' time.
Thanks, absolutely.
Guys. Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this month's Pongcast episode. We really hope you enjoyed it. To learn more about the Pong and to join this fight against modern day slavery, please visit our website, Pong-A-Thon.com. We're also very active on Facebook, so please follow us there, facebook.com/Pong-A-Thon. And we look forward to joining you in the next Pongcast episode.